speaker this afternoon. His name is John August. Thank you, John.
Okay, thank you, Rosalie. All right, yes, so I'm from Sydney. I suppose one thing I'll get started on as soon as my damn phone can get sorted out, but I'm going to be talking about some of the things that go on in political debate today. Because basically there's a lot of people who ignore what other people are saying, and they just they basically just talk past things. Okay, let's have a look what some of these things are. Yeah.
Surely there isn't much political debate actually going on.
Oh, there's a lot, but okay. Look, here's one thing that's going on. Okay, what we have is that the left actually psychoanalyzes the right into irrelevance, and the right labels the left into irrelevance. Right? That's what's going on. Basically, everyone's talking past each other. Everyone's ignoring each other. Now, another thing that happens is you basically start to say something must be perfect. If it's not perfect, it's completely bloody useless. Okay? Now, really, you know, I mean, I suppose the deeper issue is everything has good points and bad points, and the thing is it overall worth doing? Okay? Now, I know I guess I'm coming from Sydney. You know, we have our cycleways, and we have a mayor up there, Clover Moore, who's working on her cycleways, and you guys here have done a bit more with your cycles, and you've got, you know, cycles you can hire for half an hour and so on. That's all very good stuff. So Clover Moore builds her cycleways, and people say, those cycleways are not perfect. They're not as good as they could be. And I'm saying, yeah, but they're better than nothing, aren't they? Why am I the only person saying, hang on, this is better than nothing? Isn't it worth doing? Or maybe it's worth doing. But basically it's sort of saying the tiniest flaw makes something useless, okay? That is basically perfectionism. It's a lot of one of the attacks in political debate. It's unreasonable, it happens a lot. Basically the idea is something must be perfect or it's completely useless. Another thing that people love to do is worry more about people's motives rather than the ideas under discussion. Now, this is not a bad idea because it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea because someone promoting it has done this 5 or 10 years ago, or they mostly do this or they mostly do that. Now, look, maybe it's a good idea. Maybe it's a bad idea. But that's completely separate to, like, what this person is about. Now, I know you've got to think about people's backgrounds when they're putting something forward, but I do see a lot of debate. They completely ignore the point that the person is making, and just criticise them for who they are or what they've done or this or that. They're completely bloody pointless. But that's what happened. Yes, sir.
What's the point that there is no debate?
Well, I suppose some people... Okay, this is one of the things of, like, what happens in the mainstream media, what is said. Now, there are opportunities for people to say useful and detailed things. Sometimes you will even get letters to the editor that are considered and thoughtful and so on. There is the opportunity for worthwhile debate. But certainly, I guess you might say, the big name commentators, you know, metaphorically, the shock jocks of this or that, who thump the table and say grand things, they're the people who are doing this sort of thing the most. They speak, they say it loudly, it's out there, it predominates. Not to say that there's other voices out there that can be seen, can be read and so on, but okay, there's basically, that is a lot of what's going on in the mainstream. Now, okay, so we've got people's motives. Now, basically, you know, I was saying that the left psychoanalyzes the right into irrelevance. Okay, basically they say you guys don't actually think with, like, the welfare of everyone in mind. Basically, it's just that you want your property values to go up or whatever. Well, who knows, maybe they do want their property values to go up. But I tend to think some of these people who are pushing the right-wing acts, I may not agree with them, but I believe they can actually be genuine people, you know, expressing a genuine idea, and we have a genuine difference of opinion. I don't psychoanalyse them into irrelevance. I don't just say, oh, well, you're just selfish, so we can ignore what you're saying. I would say, you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong. Okay? Much better way of engaging with that. Okay, then we have the way that the right sort of deals with the left, or at least this is some of the extremes. They sort of say, all of the left are unredeemed communists, they're like pro-Stalinist, whatever. Now, I come from Sydney. We have the Sydney push, and if you go back far enough, there was a very substantial left-wing sentiment within there that was anti-Stalin. that was worked up about what Stalin was doing. But you listen to any regular commentator and they say all the lefties are unredeemed Stalin apologists. Well, I'm sorry, I identify as left. That's not what I am. And basically, okay, so the right labels the left into irrelevance. We're all the same. There's no intellectual diversity in our opinion. It's all very simplistic and superficial. And that's what the right does. So both sides are doing that. Now, another thing, I suppose it's a bit like that thing about perfectionism, you know. Basically, something has to be perfect. If it's not perfect, it's completely useless. Basically, people leave things off the table. They say, look, blah, blah, blah is happening, blah, blah, blah is happening, and then they ignore some basically important issue. And then you talk to someone else and they say, aha, but what about this? And you think, why didn't the other guy say that? You know, I read a lot of articles that fall into this pattern. Now, sometimes you're writing a brief article, let's say it's 1 or 2 pages, you basically, it's going to be a struggle to fit everything in. I mean, I know what it's like. I've written those sorts of things myself. But then you get some very long piece, you know, a chapter of a book, a whole book, which goes into a lot of incidental issues in quite some detail, and then just totally ignores something that is out there, something that is relevant. So, you know, basically a lot of people just, they conveniently leave things off the table. Now, I don't know whether basically their brains are a bit fuddled and they don't even know about it, or they're deliberately deceiving. I don't know. Yes, yes.
I can't help thinking that you're incredibly understating the situation here.
Well, okay, well, you will be speaking later on today.
There's no debate in the media.
No, I think you just got to look hard enough. Yes, draw men misrepresentation, okay? That's where you obviously, you know, basically the right are painting the lefties as all being, you know, unredeemed Stalinist apologists, which is basically not the case. Or, you know, the right wings also portray the Greens as have an anti-human agenda. We basically, not only do we want to worry about resource and resource increase, we actually want to stop people from breeding, and basically we should do a bit further than stopping them from breeding, which could start knocking them off. But that is not what the Greens are about. I know that's not what the Greens are about, but if you read some of these articles, you sort of think, who the hell have you been talking to? Right, oh, the other one, the lovely one. The elite are manipulating people's views, okay? Now, basically, there's all these different elites, and basically the elites are representative of whoever you disagree with, okay? That's a very familiar pattern. I am speaking on behalf of the silent and oppressed majority, and those people over there who say something I disagree with, they are speaking on behalf of the elite, who are manipulating things and pulling the strings in the media and so on. And again, you will see that pattern. You'll actually see basically people on diametrically opposed sides pointing the finger at each other and saying, oh, you're elitists. So, okay, the slippery slope. Okay, basically, one of the things you do get is, it's not what we're doing now, it's not this particular thing, it's what it might lead to. And I tend to think, if what it might lead to is an issue now, it will be an issue into the future. If this is worth doing now, it is worth doing now. Why do we have to start to think, oh, we can't do this because of what might happen? Right? One of the other things you start to see. Okay, and the other nice one is what I call ideological rocket booster packs, okay? Now, this is something, basically, you've got to go in and start reading, you know, Quadrant and the CIS Journal and things like that to find these ones. But basically, what you actually get in some of these articles, they're actually quite well considered bits of statistical analysis, okay? Here's the situation, here's some analysis of it, and you get some quite considered, insightful, you know, stepping stone sort of evaluations and conclusions. And they are actually quite considered and quite worthwhile conclusions. But then, about 3/4 of the way into the article, you get this sudden leap from the analysis so far to some ideologically different conclusion that is not actually justified by the analysis so far. And you can see the point at which the ideological rocket booster packs have kicked in and they've leaped across the ideological chasm to the other side. Okay, all right, yes?
The issue there, however, is that they are rising to everything from an ideological point of view, and they believe they have a philosophy reasons for it. You can't portray all of that in a newspaper or a magazine article. That's why it doesn't make sense. Now, when you look into the, you know, read further and read actual books or whatever, you might find that they're still not able to justify their position.
Sorry? Maybe.
Anyway, your videos came up well on YouTube.
Well, basically,
maybe.
there are these
Like give a short
grand
5-10
leaps.
minutes.
Now, I wonder what else can I talk about. How much time have I got here?
You've got another 15 minutes.
Well, I'm not sure I'll fill that with 15 minutes, but okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think is the ultimate cause of this? Why do you think people become polarised and identify according to a particular group rather than an ideology, which seems to be what it's about?
There's a certain, if you actually ask either the anthropologists or the sociologists or even the evolutionary psychologists, they will say there is a tribalism sentiment that's running in our brain, the in-group and the out-group. And we are actually naturally inclined towards the development of an in-group and an out-group. If you go back to the times of slavery, you might find some slave owners in Southern America who were very ethical, polite people who really treated their fellow slave owners very well and very ethical people, apart from the fact they couldn't realise that actually owning slaves was a bad thing.
To you?
They dehumanised the slaves and they were like not humans.
What's your opinion? The Bible doesn't have anything against owning slaves.
Well, that's correct. The Bible does have that issue, and if you actually look into the Bible, a lot of its morality is basically, notice, God is Lord over us, who basically looms over us and tells us what to do. Now, I know in Sydney we actually have people called anti-theists who say, not only do I not think there's a God, but if there was a God, you wouldn't want to worship him because it's a very asymmetrical relationship. It's basically not something you want to be a part of. But anyway, trying to answer your question.
But slavery is wrong to you.
You have basically, on the one hand, tribalism, which is an innate thing going on, and basically a definite refusal to even engage or consider genuinely what the other side is saying. Now, you can see I'm mostly coming from...
So why are you against slavery?
I know one or two people in Sydney who are Liberal voters, and I have to say, if I didn't know those people, I think my life would be out of balance. But it's very easy to fall into that trap and just talk to people you don't know. And that's basically either side. So, it's basically, to some degree, human nature feeding on the way the reasoning process works. And also, at times there is a certain thing of like, what's good for me is good for the world. What's good for General Motors is good for the country. That sort of basically rationalisation of what's good for you must also be good for everybody else. And that's sort of a standard mental trap. I mean, there's lots of other mental traps you can fall into that are sort of a bit different. One thing is to think that your experience is unique when everybody else goes through the same shit, okay? Right, but the other side of it is to not realise that you really are onto something unique and think that everybody else is like you. Right, two sorts of traps of reasoning. But anyway, I was going to get into a bit more about Christianity and so on.
Please do, because the next thing that you'll find that as Christianity is been lying.
Yeah.
So we'd like some opposition.
Well, hang on.
Free opposition.
To give us an opposition.
Opposition to what,
Christianity.
Give an atheist line.
Well, anyway, one of the things I will talk about is Isis and Osiris. Okay, this legend of basically that you have someone who is basically killed and reborn by his wife, and they basically resurrect that god. And that's basically a story of resurrection, which does actually come out of Egypt. But the other thing is there was actually quite a lot of Egyptian worship of Isis, which was actually changed to worship of the Virgin Mary. And basically the thing is, you have the woman who is weeping over the loss of her husband, and basically this is... Yeah. Anyway, so the point is that whole sentiment from that bit of Egyptian mythology was actually transferred into Christianity. And also, if you look at...
John, we will do this back. That's something I used to believe myself 20 years ago is not true.
Well, we disagree. I believe it, you differ. I mean, what else can I say, It's
I think you need to look at further resources.
Well, thank you very much for that comment, Thank you very much.
You're reading the wrong book.
Yes.
I'm not reading sufficient books.
A technical question.
Well, all right, look, I will stop talking now. I'll pass on.
I have a question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
It's a bit technical.
Yeah.
I've been trying to find out when Ptolemy took over Egypt, that's one of Alexander the Great's generals, he changed the Osiris-Isis religion slightly, and he called Osiris Serapis. So his temples are Serapians. Now, why? I don't know.
I don't know that level of detail. I'm obviously
born-again Catholic friend can tell us why did Ptolemy change.
Well, let's say, even if I'm wrong, it's very interesting
and who
to have
was
these
Serapis
parallels
originally?
between the worship of the Virgin Mary and these, this worship of elements within the Egyptian pantheon. I mean, even if I'm wrong, my gosh, it's a hell of a coincidence.
That's right.
Anyway, I will leave it at that.
You've got to answer all questions.
No, I don't have to answer all questions. I might run out of time.